rest of his life, perhaps. That was true. But again, you want to pull out the buzz parts or the jumping parts. I felt naked. I was terrified. I didn't have my syringe. I didn't have my jumps. I didn't have my bottle. I didn't have my woman. Whatever it is. You can see how they're counters. Now I've done something, it's the Pandora's box type argument, or cause and effect argument, or the worst possible outcome type of argument. What am I trying to say? I can't get the words right now, but they're going to take your butter knives, and then they're going to take your guns, their darts, all that kind of crap. But it's a form of argumentation, slippery slope. So here are some of the things that I have to say about this. I think we spoke about it last time pretty much. Here are intros, here with some comments on it as they were last time. Here to show you what a play is like. This is another way of talking about gun violence. First you get your coat. I don't care if you don't remember where you left it, you find it. If there was a lot of blood, you ask someone to go quickly to the basement to get a new set of scrubs. You put on your coat and you go into the bathroom. You look in the mirror and you say it. You say the mother's name and you use her child's name. You may not adjust this part in any way. I will show you. If it were my mother, you would say, Mrs. Rosenberg, I have terrible, terrible news. Naomi died today. You say it out loud until you can say it clearly and loudly. How loudly? Loudly enough. If it takes you fewer than 5 tries, you are rushing it and you will not do it right. You take your time. After the bathroom, you do nothing before you go to her. You don't make a phone call. You do not talk to the medical student. You do not put it in order. You never make her wait. She is his mother. If you get inside the room, you will know who the mother is. Yes, I'm very sure. Take her hand and tell her who you are. If it's time, you shake everyone's hand. Yes, you will know if there is time. You never stand. If there are no seats left, the couches have arms on them. You will have to make a decision about whether you will ask what she already knows. If you were the one to call her and tell her that her son had been shot, then you have already done part of it, but you have not done it yet. You are about to do it now. You never make peace. She is his mother. Now you explode the world. Yes, you have to. You say something like, Mrs. Booker, I have terrible, terrible news. Ernest died today. And you wait. You will not stand up. You may lead yourself in the heaviness of your breath, or the racing of your pulse, or the side of your shoelaces on your shoe, but you will not stand up. You are here for her. She is his mother. If the mother has another son with her, and he has punched the wall or broken the chair, do not be worried. The one that punched the wall and broke the chair will be better than the one who looks down and refuses to cry. The one who punched the wall and broke the chair will be much easier than the sister who looks up and closes her eyes as they fill. Security is already outside the room. When they hear the first loud noise, they will know to come in. No, you will not have to tell them. They know about the family room at the emergency department in Summer in North Philadelphia. It is all right. They will be kind. If the chair cannot be sat in again, that is all right. We have money for new chairs every summer. If he does not break your chair, you stay in your chair. If he does, you find a new place to sit. You are here for the mother, and you have more to do. If she asks you, you will tell her what you know. Do not lie. But do not say he was murdered or he was killed. Yes, I know that he was, but that is not what you say. You say that he died. That is the part that you saw and that you know. When she asks if he felt any pain, you must be very careful. If he did not, you assure her quickly. If he did, do not lie. But his pain is over now. Do not ever say he was lucky that he did not feel pain. He was not lucky. She is not lucky. Don't make that face. The depth of the stupidity of the things you will say sometimes is unimaginable. Before you leave, you break her heart one more time. No, I'm so sorry, but you cannot see him. There are strict rules when a person dies this way, and the police have to take him first. We cannot let him in. I'm so sorry. Do not ever say it's fine. It is not a body. It is her son. You want to tell her that you know that he was hers, but she knows that, and she does not need for you to tell her. Instead, you tell her you will give her time to come back in case she has questions. 4 for the first time. If she has no questions, do not give her the answers to the questions she has not asked. When you leave the room, do not yell at the medical student who asked a question. When you get home, do not yell at your husband. If you left his socks on the floor again today, it is all right. So, the target audience is going to be people who are not privy to these kinds of scenes, which mean many of us, even though we watch TV. So the intern that you're speaking to stands in for the target audience in that way. Many of us have found ourselves saying stupid things to people who have lost a loved one. And it also has a much more literary way of making arguments by using the symbols a little bit differently than he does. So we can see the collateral damage that it does to people. That is where it goes. It's all about the collateral damage. And if you read Once About Gun Insurance, you can see people are not going to receive anything, of course, but they're not worried about that. They're worried about the girl. And the boy breaks a chair, but at least he gets down, he expresses it. The sister's going to be ruined. The mother's going to be ruined. They also use the power of the mother as a symbol in American culture and home culture. Here. And the dialogue is not filled with a bunch of filler. So it's a process essay. This is how you do it. Cause and effect essay. They all marry. It's just a way of talking about the writing. They're saying patterns. This person survived really the first mass murder, one of the first mass murders in the country. I lived in Dallas for a while, which is about, I don't know, 4 hours from Austin. And the UT Tower, when I was a kid, this was in the 70s, this was about 5 or 6 years after the shooting, and it was still closed. They opened it finally. The University of Texas has a big clock tower in the middle of the campus. This guy went up there. I saw a photograph posted on Twitter by Daniel Defense, maker of the weapon that turned a Texas elementary school into a killing field a little over a week ago. I felt the guilt of recognition. I must have let that win right there. The photo was of a small boy sitting cross-legged on the floor and holding a similar high-powered rifle. The caption was a biblical verse: "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." This advertising image recalled instantly for me the haunting photo of another child, barely out of diapers, holding a pair of his daddy's rifles. This boy was Charles Joseph Whitman, age 2. This is a terrible article when you know what this boy the other day did and where he got his gun. His dad. This boy was Charles Joseph Whitman, age 2. Raised by a brutal, damaged father who taught him to shoot and shoot well before he was school age, Charlie did not depart from it. I was in a Shakespeare class at the University of Texas in Austin on August 1st, 1966, where Whitman, by then 25, took his weapons and his torments to the top of the university's main building, and from its clock tower became the first modern history on a uniquely American timeline of what we now call mass shooters. Altogether, he killed 15 people and wounded 31. He's fired from a tower. Many grievously. There's a great animated documentary about it called The Tower. It may be on Canopy, which you guys can get into through the library for free. Like HBO for great movies or whatever. But it shows a long time ago. You can find a lot of great movies. Altogether, he killed 15 people and wounded 31, many grievously, including a man who died decades later of the injuries he suffered. Those of us forced to witness the carnage hid from the crosshairs of Whitman's sniper scope and stepped around puddles of blood that darkened in the hot sun before it was finally over. Cannot forget, even if we wanted to. The shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde is both its own distinct nightmare and simply the latest reminder. Tell me, hon, Whitman's father, also Charles, said to me in 1976 when I interviewed him for a story on the anniversary of the shootings. How do they feel about this in Austin 10 years later? Do they blame the family? Or do they think Charlie was just sick? Here's one thing nobody was thinking back then, that we would still be having these conversations 56 years later. The Vietnam War was barely underway in 1966. We'd never heard of military-style weapons in the hands of civilians. We thought Whitman was an aberration. But what began on the UT campus with 2 generations ago has never ended, as a recent essay in the Texas Tribune put it. It's been repeated again and again. Thoughts and prayers. Yet mass shootings did pause in Texas and elsewhere for many years. One thing that changed was the weaponry. In 1989, a suicidal angry drifter with an AK-47 style rifle killed 5 and wounded 32 at an elementary school in Stockton, California. The outcry brought California and later Congress to ban such weapons. The federal ban ended in 2004. The money was great. Stop it. Doesn't say that. I do. In a way, Whitman was an anomaly compared to later shooters. An older, former Marine sharpshooter who picked off his victims one by one with a Remington 700 bolt-action rifle, a classic hunting and sniper weapon that instilled him to fire up to 10 rounds a minute. For boys taught to hunt like he was, skill was key. It was a point of pride to make the first shot to killing shots so the animal would get far or needlessly suffer. My cousin Blaine Bennett, who grew up in Uvalde and still lives there, remembers once asking his father for more capacity for his deer rifle. It held 3 bullets and he wanted 5, my uncle refused. His reasoning was, if I had to drop that deer in 3 shots, then I was just a bad shot, Blaine recalled. In fact, his expectation for me was 1 shot. My cousin was 8 at the time. Old school Texans like him were repelled by the idea that anyone, much less teenagers, as the shooters in Uvalde and Buffalo and Parkland were, can easily buy and wreak havoc with weapons that are designed to tear apart scores of human bodies within seconds and cause maximum suffering. Gun advocates deride the spray and pray reputation of the AR-15 as a myth, but it's capable of firing 6 times as many rounds a minute as a bolt-action rifle. However, if the power shootings were an aspiration, they were also a template for the mass slayings that followed. We know the script by heart. There will be shock and horror and senseless deaths. Interviews with survivors and relatives of victims and shooters. Photographs of those who were slain in their funerals. No fun debates, gun debates. Much talk about a mental health crisis. Explosive news conferences about what went wrong because something always goes wrong, whether it's before, during, or after the shooting or all 3. When I dragged my 2 dusty boxes of Whitman sniper files from my garage and made shooting yellow copies of all these first police reports, I was struck by the echoes of Uvalde and the chaos and terror of that afternoon in Austin. In a way, mass shootings feel like war. Difficult even for cops to comprehend unless they just see the same thing that's going on in the subject is going on in the Bayes. His shooting was the war in that way, and the effects stayed with it. Houston McCoy was a military veteran, perhaps the first police officer to arrive at the tower after the shooting began. His handwritten account of that afternoon, the adrenaline confusion and fear, is remarkable for its plain-spoken honesty. Grab my shotgun, look for an entrance. Don't see one, look toward the top and see all the windows. Feel like there is somebody with a gun behind each window. Get scared, flip back to my police car. Endless hash and rehash of what the good guys did or didn't do this in NRA. In Uvalde, it's an old story. There will always be blasting and mistakes and missed warning signs despite the shooter drills, training, and fancy equipment that are supposed to avoid them. When Whitman told the doctor at the Student Health Center about his urge to take a deer rifle to the top of UP's main building and shoot people, the doctor took notes but did nothing except schedule him for another appointment. The same thing happened with the boy the other day. Whitman never showed. The unarmed campus cop on guard duty when Whitman drove on campus could have checked his claim that the footlocker in his backseat contained equipment for the science building. It actually contained his arsenal. But there was no reason in 1966 to be suspicious of this young man. The rapid shots from the observation deck were ringing above their heads as McCoy and other officers got the word to converge near the tower. McCoy thought, oh boy, someone has finally come up with a plan, he later recounted. There was no plan. Almost an hour would pass before he and Officer Ramiro Martinez fell Whitman in a helter-skelter rush to the observation deck, an hour in which the body count rose. Though he was a hero that day, McCoy blamed himself for those bodies for the rest of his life. That's the trouble with trauma, as survivors and the bereaved all they are learning. Like all the others who came before, it rippled through people and communities, even generations, endlessly, never reaching the shore where it can spend itself with good. Losing any loved one is hard, but losing your child is particularly devastating. As I learned when talking to survivors of the tower shootings many years later, those traumas of their lives destroyed marriages, ripped apart families. Those of us who were there in 1966 are in our 70s and 80s now. We've lived long enough to die of natural causes. Our grandchildren will children who were shot to pieces in Uvalde will be shot to pieces somewhere else. There have been worse mass shootings in terms of numbers, but there's something unbearable about those young faces, row upon row of them, looking so hopefully at the camera when they were alive. The unprecedented massacre on Classic College campus has repeated itself in 2 generations counting. An instance, therefore, a predictable one, that is by an unspeakably deadly weapon that almost anyone can buy anywhere. We didn't know that going in 1966, but every decade since, we've learned. So, sorry about that. So, this one uses humor. It's a much different logo. He doesn't control question. Wow. So, she begins with, and this woman is pretty funny. She appears in the post. Democrats say we have guns in America because of corruption. No, we have guns because it's our God-given right enshrined in the Constitution. And this was quoting Sarah Sanders and County. Governor of Arkansas, she was Trump's press secretary. Yes, this is true, and it is good that we talk about it. The fact about the American founding that has been suppressed for too long. Certainly all the firearms found micro-like across the country were acquired by no mortal means, and it is important for us to describe exactly how they came about so that we may better understand and appreciate them. Here is not important, but it was a long time ago, at least 230 years. The country possessed many wonders. There were waterfalls, rocks, rills, woods, stippled hills. There were raccoons, small nervous bears that were forever washing their hands like tiny rabies Macbeth. There were armadillos. There were even syphilis and Christianity, both thoughtful gifts from Europe. But when one surveyed the country from above, something seemed to be missing. What was it? Suddenly, thunder rumbled in the hall in Philadelphia, where they were gathered to write a constitution, and also in Virginia, where George Mason was crafting the Virginia Declaration of Rights. Confusingly, these events were different years, but theologians determined this impossible. The delegates shuddered. And Benjamin Franklin had to rub James Madison's back soothingly and murmur to him so his hand stopped shaking enough to be able to start taking notes again. Behold, said the thundering voice from the cloud. Madison had resumed taking his notes at this point. This is how we know this. The heavens parted, an enormous hand stretched forth, holding a mysterious black object long and pointed like a stick. I've given you this, the hand said. A gift from me to you that no one can ever take away. What is it, the delegates asked. Just take it, the hand said. Don't worry about it. What's it for, the delegates asked. Killing, the hand said. Indiscriminately, children, teenagers, grandmothers, parents on their way to pick up their kids from school, toddlers. I guess you could use it for hunting, but not if you were particularly good at hunting. Like a musket, someone asked. The voice laughed loud and long and rumblingly. Only the loosest fits, the voice said. For behold, this can fire 600 rounds per minute. It seems like it'd be useful in a war, Mason said, not unreasonably. I don't mean in war, the voice said. That goes without saying. I mean in private homes or on city streets, and unlocked cabinets and houses with toddlers in the hands of police officers. Oh, the delegate said. Well, it is important to me that you have this, the voice said. Is this for the well-regulated militia? Someone asked. Not really, the voice said. Don't get distracted. If anyone tries to restrict it to that, say no. Say I gave you these. Say they're from me, and they'd better not try to take them. I have a slight question, Benjamin Franklin said. Stop asking questions, the voice said. And if anyone ever says there are too many, these are too dangerous, we don't want them anymore. The militia thing has really waned, so it seems like mostly they are used to cause accidents in the home, to increase the likelihood that people who want to end their lives will be able to do so, and to decrease the number of children and civilians. You must say no, because I told you so, and I am pleased. Behold, great work. The clouds began to close. Objects began to rain from the sky in great profusion. Large, small, shiny, and dull, they fell onto the table, and you did not see the Constitution underneath them. The voice proceeded in a great rumbling. Wait, do you think the Electoral College is a good system? Madison yelled after it, but there was no answer. The objects lay there in a pile on the green felt-covered table. Nobody would touch them for a long time. How do we, one of the delegates started, then stopped. How do we indicate all of that in the Constitution? Madison sighed. Let's just put in the militia thing, he said. All of that may well happen, but I am not certain we should give it a head start. Heinz sighed. This is why I'm a deist. That is as far as the notes go on a day when God gave us all documented rights. This is for people who know about the gun argument and know what to say and know about it in general, but we have a lot of keywords that go through people who are gun enthusiasts, let's say, and kind of thinking and hiding behind God and all of that. So, if this one, I can go through some of the worst. I'll go to the worst people and try to look at something real quickly. I thought I covered them in the discussion, but if I haven't, how does the beginning text and why? He starts at 19, of course, and gives us the narrative that's big and constructed, real instructed, I guess you could say. Now, it's a contentious subject. This goes to the way that he presents himself, compares Wofford. And then your next question is, why does he present himself in this way? Why is he showing this to us, or to his target audience? That's where I went to the it's nothing to brag about, which is also an indication of who he thinks he's talking to. I mean, he's denigrating the skills that other people are going to make, just the skill of being able to do something with your eyes closed if you were a genie or something. But for him, it's just one big drug rat, also, right? But that's why I say go there. Who is his target audience? How can you tell? And I marked those things, and we picked up a lot of them. See what he first said, like paragraph 5, gives you a strong sense of one reading, and that is the hey, pump, get real. But his argument in the Senate, you don't only say that civilians shouldn't use or shouldn't own these weapons. That's what he puts it, that's what he says. It's all rifles. Because if you say they shouldn't own them because they will have to own them in the way that I've had to own mine, civilian land, in my head, you can make that argument too. How does he appeal to emotion? Stories are emotional force, but they happen not only in a general sense. I mean, emotional appeal is an umbrella term. So vigorous language is going to be one thing. The way that he uses these short, declarative sentences are going to be something else. Appeal to emotion too. Anything that is non-contractual language practically can be called an emotional appeal. You can only do these things. In other words, all interpretation in that way. But you can see how much easier it is to see on television and in the movies because people are acting it out for you. Whereas in stuff on paper, you have to imagine it. And that's what I was saying. Imagine if we're talking about people in your neighborhood with this kind of weaponry and those kinds of attitudes and that kind of ignorance. Don't put them in a space like a vacant lot or something or some odd idea of Afghanistan. They're in the neighborhood. That he's in the neighborhood and angry, maybe he's talking to people who have a lot of guns around them or something. I don't know. You can make that argument, maybe. But you see how it works. You have evidence, interpretation. I can tell by this. I can tell by that. And you put them all together in a paragraph. So, here he shows himself in the 3 incidents, the common unremarkable situation, the threat. That's what he's trained to feel, and he's trained to respond to that threat. Unfortunately, it's not in Afghanistan. He's angry. And they could just walk into my house and shoot me, is what he's been trained to think. That's what he's trained to do for the battlefield. It's inappropriate. It's unrealistic. It's out of whack. However you want to say it, in a civilian situation. Yeah, I mean, I make a joke in class. Say, so what if students are armed if they want to talk to me about their paper, right? So, it's not appropriate. It does other things wrong. Speak to most veterans, ones that don't have mental problems with guns. They will keep away from them largely. It's not a game in that way. So you are starting with the facts. That's easy enough. If you want to mention the things that Kttn's argument that he's both a veteran and a teacher around him, well, here's his argument. So that's important too. And it may go to his purpose in that sense. think about it. What is he teaching his target audience? You want to look at that. Remember that he's not taking people that are actually dead set on these guns and killing people. Like I was reading about the shooting of the kid who had his weapon given to him by his dad, and one guy pointed out, one of the experts said, the killer is determined. You can't stop that once that starts. And that way, he's not saying that people will kill, but they'll be in the killing mode in a situation where it's not appropriate. And putting it as not appropriate, of course, is a mild way of putting it. But his argument in a sense, he's going to have reasons for his opinion. And he can also take, you see where if you were to take the addict opinion, reasons would be conformed to that reading. Because at least people addicted to violence are only going to put it for the rest of their lives, and they will have to second guess themselves constantly when they have a fishing pole or a pencil or even when they're carving the turkey, whatever. So your thesis comes into your interpretation. So that's all determined by the target audience that you find. And you can see where writing for no one gives you no clues whatsoever. He's writing to every American. Well, there are plenty of Americans who don't want anything to do with him, so he's not writing to them. And he's not writing to veterans who already know all of this. It's some sort of instinctual move that people make. Well, he's talking to people that already agree with him. No, he's not at all. They already know everything. Why would he waste his time doing that? He might talk to everyone in that sense, that people agree with him about, a funeral oration or something. But again, the fact that he uses 3 appeals is just, yes, everybody does in this format. Everybody. And everybody has a target audience. You got to write a speech for next Monday. Man, what you going to do? You're going to try to figure out who you're talking to. At least you'll have the name of the organization, which will be some clue to what their interest may be, that kind of thing. Because you're not talking to those who already agree. There'll be an assignment. I think I put it up like that. I'll put up the guidelines here at the class. Well, if you have the first section done, hold on a second. That was this morning. But they're explaining the guidelines, too. And they explained in the model, the Rediff Reports model. But hold on. I put those. But what you have in the first paragraph, that's why I asked for them, is what you are explaining in the rest of the paper. And, so, we'll make the case for your interpretation of a certain text, a certain rep or detail, at a certain place and time addresses a certain audience, wherever you find behavior she hopes to change or he hopes to change. How does she do this? If he knows that he wants to stop from going into the draft, he'll emphasize the drug aspect, maybe. You begin with the who, the what, the where. You can find in chapter 2, let's get it right, and also in chapter 6, in practice. All the dots that I have under materials in the same modules help you. Your opinion about the issue is irrelevant, of course, so breaking something into show how it works, breaking down show how it works. The central part is the audience. Read the text through that on both their eyes. The 5-paragraph essay, you're explaining your thesis like you do in other essays. But you've broken it out, and you're not giving me an essay about it. You're reading as you're reading along. You have read it. You have decided which are the tools that are most appropriate for the target audience you have found, and you're explaining your findings. This one has a couple of good points in it about the brown color essay that we might look at. Here I go. Kttn 1993 editorial, let's put pornography back in the closet, published in New York time, Susan Brown, a feminist author, uses appeals to character, appeals to authority, and offers a more civic-minded definition. These are not quite specific, but we'll see how she does make it more specific. This one is. Here's her argument. She argues to her audience the First Amendment absolutists. That's only one feature of her argument. That the open display of pornography contributes to an environment in which rape is normalized, so we have to put bad magazines back in the back. But at any rate, like other essays, and this is not mine, but you still have the snap of the essay, you'll have to cover these things. As you saw again, why it worked, that is the model. Common things to avoid, 750 words and 6 pages of analysis. And this one, since I provided the essay, you don't have to give me the works cited page, but you do have to tell me where you find the material in paragraph 6 and paragraph 5, whatever it is. You're making your case. So, go back to why it worked. I think I did it. No, I didn't. That's what he goes into. He has the four things that he goes to. One of them was parallelism, one of them was patriotism, right here. Now he tells us he's going to use the voice first, so he's setting up his analysis as we looked at. And this is all, his purpose is to mollify scared white people. And so everything that he does goes to that end in the speech. That's what this analyst found. And he's just talking about this, reasoning on about it. I see no X-ray reading. This is what you are doing. And in all the commentary, I get to see an X-ray reading of the text that would make visible the rhetorical strategies that the orator and authors use so effectively. That's what you are doing. We're not worried about this question of effectiveness because these are prose with editors. I try to move that question out of the whole equation because that's what people like as well, because they want you to say, this is a failure, at any rate. Then he goes into it, like most pieces of oratory sounds better than it reads. And here is his thesis. So you would get the first part of your information here from the Fed, here's here. Target audience, all these people, these things, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you explain yourself that way that he does. Quote the text to prove your point, you're making your case. The reader in this case, and you probably feel it in a different way, is a jury. So you are, in that sense, and when you're making the case, the more evidence you can marshal for a certain reading, of course, makes your case stronger. So do you have any questions at all? Okay, I'll look at the Brown Miller and you want to watch what he does. Just watch briefly what he does. Put yourself on the side of the angel immediately. Free speech is one of the great foundations on which our democracy rests. I am old enough to remember the Hollywood and a bunch of free speech heroes. Screenwriters who went to jail because of free speech. They tried to use the First Amendment as a defense, but they went to jail. The Hollywood said we're correct, and I'm on their side and they're on mine. Its high purpose is the protection of unpopular ideas and political dissent in the dark cold days of the 50s. Few civil libertarians were willing to declare themselves First Amendment absolutists. But in the brighter, though frantic days of the 1960s, etc., things changed. This is one paragraph, 2 paragraphs, 3. Then she gets to herself. This is the 4th paragraph. She's already shown us that she is a fan of the First Amendment, and she's a fan of the Supreme Court and its rulings that come down in a certain way. Then she aligns herself with some of the great authors of the 20th century, because she too is an author. These are very famous cases about pornography in literature. You know probably who James Joyce is, or should be, or who was, and Miller, maybe not, and maybe Lawrence. And then she makes a move that is interesting and shows why we should not show nasty or girly magazines to young people. I am not a fan anecdotally, the tropic books I should quickly mention, they are not to my literary taste, nor do I think they represent female sexuality with any degree of accuracy. This is her argument. But I would hardly suggest that we ban them. Such a suggestion wouldn't get very far anyway. The battle to protect these books is ancient history. What she says is, we need to take it out of the realm of subjectivity, that I like this and you don't, and put it in the realm of children and child raising, that we don't need to show this stuff to our kids in public. But she spends the first 7 or 8 paragraphs establishing her bona fides because she feels like her target audience needs to hear that before she gets started. Then she goes to what type of feminist she is, because she believes that the target audience has some idea that is wrong about feminism, that they are prudes and spinsters and against sex in general. So she takes care of that too. And that tells us what her audience may think, or she thinks her audience thinks, and she has to do this work. And then she goes into, and as I think I said in class, she's talking about outside magazine stands in the city, in New York City. This is the 90s. And if you've been to a city or a big city like that, they have the magazines all out for everybody to see. Boobs, butts, foreheads, elbows, whatever the hell it may be. And so you're walking your kid to school, and the little girl sees one thing and the little boy sees another. And so it's an argument about equal rights in that sense, but it's also about an argument about community values and normalizing a serial rapist, as we're doing now, or at least. But at any rate, and that's her argument. I'm only showing you that how she goes about it. Boyle does the same thing in a different argument. This is the war argument that he has about the draft. First, we saw this briefly in the first couple of days. The longest love affair of my life, he too begins with the sort of marriage thing that you can find a bit at Thea's relationship. The longest love affair of my life began with a shotgun marriage. It was the height of the Vietnam War, and my student he begins by admitting his mistakes, which is a winning thing to do. People like that. He's honest with himself, but probably be honest with me. But he spends 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 paragraphs setting up. And here is his final paragraph where he lowers the boom. But he waits until the final paragraph to do so. If this war is truly worth fighting, the burdens of doing so should fall on all Americans. Support this war, but assume that Pat Tillman and other people's children should fight it, then you are worse than a hypocrite. If it's not worth your family fighting it, then it's not worth it, period. The draft is the truest test of public support for the administration's handling of the war, which is perhaps why the administration is so dead set against bringing it back. That's heavy stuff. That's heavy artillery. He does it a little bit throughout. This is still the New York Times, and this is still 2004 before Trump, so you don't have your fly open. You're fussing in public all the time. But he spends the whole first part of the essay showing the mistakes that he made and where he found himself. So I joined the Marines, and I know what I'm talking about. And you know what? My kid's in the Marines too, or he went into the service without being asked. And I have great respect for that. When you're showing respect for others on stage, you're showing respect. You're minding your manners. You're trustworthy. You're a good kid. Etc. I am now the father of a young man who has far more character than I ever had. Right? I joined the Marines because I had to. And he signed up after college because he felt called to. He volunteered for an elite unit and has served in both Afghanistan and Iraq. There, we're back home, aren't we, in Afghanistan? When I see images of Americans in the war zones, I think of my son and his friends, many of whom I have come to know and deeply respect. This is the course when I open this newspaper, it is the occasion. But it's also the funeral for a guy who was a football player and made a lot of money playing a boys' game and then went into war and died. And so all you cosplayers out there, you're going to the same people. The cosplayers here are the people in Congress who don't have children in the war. And so they can send your kids around to be killed. And the other thing about the draft is that you have to explain to these young people, you have to explain to their parents why you're choosing their kids. When you have people sign up on their own, you don't have to explain to parents why they need your daughter, and they can't go to war, they can't explain. They can't really explain them. Because if they do explain them, you won't want it either. It's about oil. My kid died for oil, yeah. showing just how people make arguments. And he estimates the audience is going to need to hear all of this. He's making an argument about skin in the game, but he's also making an argument about the big boys who also skipped the draft, like Trump did too. Had a doctor give him a note. Cheney did the same thing. Bush engineered his way into the Texas National Guard, whose mission was to stop the Vietnamese invasion of the Texas coast. It's hard to get on that list. Called the Champagne Unit. At any rate, he goes back to the class situation, but also skin in the game. That's why they don't have skin in the game. That's why they're there to get out of it. And he goes there too. There are a lot of things going on in every argument. But he shows us helping attack, terrified out of his mind, all of these things, and the quality that the education that he got in the military by serving other people. As for Swafford, he is almost exactly the opposite. They make the same argument. You can see just in the title, the difference in the tone, the difference in the persona. Put the two titles next to each other. Before the United States Marine Corps allowed me to carry it, they're going to the same place. I have an issued weapon, and I have training along with that weapon. And he goes to the fact that, too, he was treated like a maggot. You know, we're going to give you a blade gun if you learn how to deal with the real one. Only on the shooting range is I allowed to shoot live bullets. He goes to the same thing. And it doesn't really matter what gun it is. What matters is people on the ground in their own blood. You receive $0 hours of mandated training. There's no reason that any civilian of any age could possess this rifle. Same argument, different persona. It's absurd. I'll just push this to its absurdity. What if everybody had a gun in that dark movie and they were trying to protect themselves by shooting everyone else? That's what the NRA promotes. And people point that out too. So most of the arguments have the same components. It's all about the audience at their change, they approach to them. So I'll put those guidelines in there, but they're going to be under the explanations and guidelines too if you want to get started. We will move on to another essay next week. And that's how it works. We'll do the same thing. There'll be a planning sheet. We'll discuss it. You will turn in a final draft, and we move on to your stuff. And you'll be doing the same thing, only from the opposite angle, choosing your target audience. I will force you to choose a specific audience in the sense that many people try to choose an audience that comprehends so many qualities. They're from 18 to 85 years old that it's worthless. And it doesn't help you whatsoever. You know, an 18-year-old is much different than a 21-year-old, much less an 85-year-old or whatever. Or they'll give people a bunch of money, so then he switches. You should build a spaceship and leave Earth. Doesn't necessarily in the often. You have to give people choices they can act upon in that way. But that's what we're doing, and so have a long and productive weekend. And I will see you on Monday.
Goodbye.
Take care.
Mm.